were in effect beginning January of 2016. So we wanted to implement some lessons learned from our TQS 1.0 processes. We wanted to mitigate risk, protect our brand, and adapt to changes. And so when you're thinking about, how the standards might fit, or how your documents might fit some of these standards, the thing to really remember with TQS 2.0 is about intent. And we always kind of discuss intent when we're looking at what meets standards and what doesn't meet standards, and that's something just to always think about in the back of your mind. All right, so objectives for this session then. We're going to understand the affiliate planning standards, what is new and what has changed, indicators, and then where the tools and templates are available on the National Resource Center, which we fondly call the NRC. Okay, so first let's go into a scenario. So an affiliate has had significant leadership turnover, which multiple executives left within 1 year of one another. The board had not received updates against the strategic plan or annual operations plan in several years and was informed about the upcoming end of a major grant, and was uninformed, about the upcoming end of a major grant cycle. They were not aware that there would be a resulting hole in the upcoming year, fiscal year's funding, and thus were left with a huge deficit when their fiscal year ended. So just to reflect, so what are some of the key issues and risks in this scenario, and what should be done to mitigate these risks? And if you want to either raise your hand or I'm monitoring the chat box, you can just we'll take 1 minute now, and you can think about that. Anyone have any ideas? Or another question that's not on the page, but what do you think happened to this affiliate? No? We have someone. Potentially an affiliate could close. And to answer the questions that are on the board, there is, of course, the key issues here is that there wasn't enough financial reporting to the board, specifically around the strategic and annual operations plans. They might not have been able to stay open. That's come up a couple of times, yes. Another couple of things that might happen, they might have to lay off staff. They might have to do reorganization work. The board might really have to step up to kind of fill in those funding gaps. So these are just a couple of things that might have to happen. And so that's why we really wanted to kind of revamp the affiliate planning standards to ensure that the board was more included, and we'll kind of get into that as we discuss the new strategic planning standards and annual operations plan. So great, thank you for, succession plan should be in place, yes, very good. All of these things that we've kind of talked about. All right, so we will go moving on to what is new and what has changed. And as you look up on this screen, you'll notice that if you've joined us for any of the previous webinars, we kind of are keeping the same format for consistency's sake, but in previous webinars, we've always had as what's new and what's changed. And here we really just have what's changed. So all of these standards, strategic plan, which is Business Standard 5.1, 5.2 is the annual operations plan, and then 5.3 is the strategic and annual operations plans review. All of those were actually in place in 1.0, and based on feedback from the network, we just revamped them and changed them, tweaked them slightly, and I'll discuss that as we keep going. But basically, because of that, you should already have all of these, hopefully, standards in place, so nothing is brand new. And if you're wondering why I'm not really going to be talking about Business Standard 5.4, which is accreditation and reaccreditation, which from your pre-reading, you were probably, wondering, the reason for that is because although accreditation and reaccreditation was not technically part of the standards in TQS 1.0, it was obviously something that we were doing at the national level here, and so we just decided to formalize it by putting it in the standards themselves. But nothing is new about the accreditation or reaccreditation from the 1.0 perspective. It's just we made it more formal and added it in here to Business Standard 5.4. All right, so then let's dive right into Strategic Plan 5.1. So how often do you have to do this? You review and approve the strategic plan every 3 to 5 years. And what needs to be uploaded to Box.com for reaccreditation purposes. So this is a little different than before, so it's just description of the strategic planning process and the strategic plan, and then the board minutes showing plan approval. We've had some questions about the process and what that could mean. It could be a retreat, in which case you would upload maybe the agenda. That would be sufficient. The process could also be, maybe a bulleted list of what was discussed at a board meeting in which you discussed the strategic plan, perhaps a timeline of how you went about planning your strategic plan could also be sufficient for that process piece. Of course, you'll upload the strategic plan and the board minutes. And so if we go to kind of things to look for, so as I mentioned, the focus is now both on the process as well as the plan. And another thing that we took from our network was we really kind of shifted some of the responsibility to a shared role between the executive director and the board in driving the strategic plan. And again, this kind of goes back to our scenario where the board was somewhat out of the loop with planning, and we don't want that to happen. So now it's a responsibility between the ED and the board, so the board is fully understanding what's going on with the operations in your affiliate. And then the last part is we have these core functions in TQS 1.0, and we refocused them, on capacity, sustainability, impact, fundraising, and constituent engagement. And we did this as a way to provide more flexibility to you and your affiliate. You know what goals you're working toward. It's going to be different across our network, and so we wanted to make sure that the strategic plan was something that you can make work for your affiliate, so there's more flexibility there. And lastly, we hope that this will all make it a lot more simple. So we're really hoping to kind of, I think before the strategic plan was really focused on those core functions, and you had to tie certain actions to the functions, and so we've kind of simplified that and just said, and you probably saw it in your pre-reading, that basically as long as you're hitting these things, A and B in the first part, and then the 3 parts of the plan, you'll be good to go. Okay, so now moving on to 5.2, which is the annual operations plan. So as the name implies, that you do this annually and you upload the plan annually to Box.com, the current plan, and of course the board minutes showing approval of that plan. And some things to look out for, again, from the pre-reading you notice that there's lots of different components. So when we say current plan, we mean that it must include all of the parts of the standard. But we also think that this is allowing for more flexibility from the previous standards, which were more prescriptive in including specific elements of the plan. We really want you to try to tie activities to the goals of your annual operations plan, and it kind of, again, moves away from these core functions. So again, based on feedback from the network, we just decided that we're going to make the strategic plan and the annual operations plan more flexible, move away from the core functions, and really make it a lot easier for affiliates to achieve these standards. I think we are good there. And then the last standard that we'll be discussing today is Business Standard 5.3, which is the Strategic and Annual Operations Plans Review. So this is a little different because you'll review the strategic plan annually, but you'll review the annual operations plan quarterly. And so what you need to update to Box.com is the annual review of the strategic plan the quarterly reviews of the AOP, the Annual Operations Plan, and then the documentation of any adjustments. And again, we are sharing the responsibility between the ED and the board. We're ensuring that boards are reviewing the plans and using them as a guide. And, you know, how are we allowing for more flexibility? Through the documentation piece. Regarding how you want to do the updates and reviews, as long as you document it, that's up to you. So you can use the plan. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that you can use the plan we hope that you use the plan as a living document, and then go ahead and make these adjustments as you see fit. And again, that's part of the flexibility piece as well. Anything else in my notes? And then, of course, as I mentioned before, so this is not just something that the ED should not just be reporting out on, but really should be taking in some input from the board as well. And so that's kind of where we see that shared responsibility of the ED and the board taking on the review of the strategic and annual operations plans. Okay, so I'm going to pause here as I just threw 3 standards at you and ask if there are any questions about these standards and what we consider to be new about them from the TQS 1.0 to TQS 2.0 perspective. I will be monitoring the chat, and if you want to raise your hand, you can do that as well.
And as a reminder, that raise your hand function can be found underneath the participants box. So right underneath where you see your name on the computer, there's a little hand function. You go ahead and hit that, and we will unmute you so you can join in the conversation.
All right, how detailed are we required to get in terms of activities associated with the AOP? That's a good question. Do you want to?
So in terms of the activities, we don't set necessarily any bar in terms of the details. They are the major activities that you will be engaging on to meet the goals, to meet your goals for the year. And so, you know, I think if we were to do a review and look at an AOP that had, you know, incredibly high-level activities, almost to the point of not being enough to report on, we would probably make a recommendation that, you know, you become more detailed, but I wouldn't say it necessarily becomes a finding. So that's really up to, you know, the affiliates to determine what level of detail they want to get into. I mean, just as a reminder, you know, you are reporting out to your board on progress within the AOP, and therefore, you know, day-to-day tasks, probably not something that you would want to report out on or keep in a plan, and would be much more focused on, you know, large events, large milestones, and large, you know, project completions. Would be my suggestion, but that's really up to you about how detailed you want to get into it. The AOP is not a project plan. It really is, you know, the operations of your affiliate throughout that year to meet the goals that you've set for that year as they align to your strategic plan.
Okay. Any other questions? So then follow up to that, it's like areas of work versus specific tasks.
Yeah, I would not get into tasks. I mean, that would just be my recommendation. You know, again, I wouldn't make it a project plan necessarily, but yeah, areas of work. You know, if you have an event coming up, you know, if it's a big fundraising event, your annual big, you know, fundraising event, you know, that would be, you know, an activity or a line potentially within the AOP, as I've seen examples of the AOP out there. But again, it's up to you how you want to use it and how you want to make sure that your board is up to date on your progress. Yeah, I wouldn't get into tasks at that level. I would think that's much more sort of on the project planning level, which we don't, you know, from a national perspective, a TQS perspective, we don't touch on. So.
Great. Do we have any other questions before I go ahead and move on? We'll also have time for questions at the end. So. Okay. So actually now, since you've been not very chatty thus far, I kind of want to actually have an open discussion about maybe what are some ways in which you and your affiliate create your strategic plan, and kind of how do you involve your board in the annual operations plan and update. So if you, again, would like to type into the chat or raise your hand, we will unmute you, and we would just kind of love to, part of, I think, the great thing about having a federated network is that we can kind of discuss ideas with one another and see what works for folks in different places. So, anyone have any thoughts? I'm wondering, do a lot of folks use a board retreat to do their strategic plan? That seems always to be a good time to kind of, or an AOP each year. Oh, let's see. All right, so we're hearing we have a strategic plan retreat, which lasts all day. We hire an outside facilitator who walks us through the day to ensure ample time for work and feedback. That's great. That is Alexis.
Okay.
And Katie from, I believe, Lehigh Valley said we're incorporating research and community data to focus groups with key stakeholders in developing our strategic plan. Oh, that's a great idea. I didn't even think about that. And then Julie Mormon mentioned one creative thing we did was email a feedback form to our community partners, school leadership, key stakeholders to create our 3-year strategic plan. This allowed us to get a lot of input for folks who might not be, oops, sorry, where did it go? I think it's down. Yes, thank you. Strategic plan with partners. Okay, sorry about that. 3-year strategic plan. This allowed us to get a lot of input from folks who might not be in the planning meeting. Survey of staff. We use surveys prior to the strategic plan. Great. We have used board retreats to do our strategic plan historically. Wonderful. And on the AOP, we highlight current indicators quarterly and report progress to the plan. So the board has some high-level insight for the current time frame. Wonderful. Those all sound like great ideas. I particularly like the community engagement one. Great. Okay, so I'm glad that we have that little pair and share time, and we're just going to wrap up here with discussing kind of where to upload some documents, which I will demo for you. Yeah, I can demo. Okay. So for uploading the documents, oops, that's not it. I have it here. Oh, I had it up. Why is it not here? Okay, so you want to go into your reaccreditation folder, business documents. You'll upload the actual plan itself, the process, into strategic plan and annual operations plan. But then for anything pertaining to the board, you'll upload that in board operations. So there's minutes from the most recent board meetings, which we'll look to make sure that you had approved the strategic plan, had approved the AOP, and then had been doing the quarterly updates and the annual update to those. So if there are no questions on that, I just went through that. So that's just right under, there's, like I said, 2 places, business documents under affiliate planning documents, and then you want to go into board operations for those board minutes. We will move on to the resources. All right, so here we are. I'm going to move you down here, I think. And how do I get rid of that? Oh. Here we are. So when you go into the NRC, which is resources.communitiesandschools.org, the password is empower. You're going to click right here on nonprofit operations. And when you click on that, you'll find a plethora of kind of topics. And of course, today we're talking about the affiliate planning standards. So we have the strategic planning process, which if you click on this link, opens you right to here, this page. And you have an overview of why your strategic plan is important. You have the policy right there in case you're not looking at your standards currently. And then we have a ton of resources. And some of these resources are external resources. For example, this document, 10 Keys to Successful Strategic Planning for Nonprofit and Foundation Leaders, opens up to this little brief that you can read through if you'd like. We also have a strategic planning process toolkit, which I already opened down here. And as you go through this, you see it basically goes step by step through the different aspects of a strategic plan. Budget, monitoring, etc. And then if you're back here, we also have, again, another example of an outside resource. The National Council on Nonprofits has a great strategic planning section. And then if you go scrolling down, there's actually some samples. So this one from the Denver Foundation is a little old, from 2011, but it's up there. It's on the internet for all to use, and you can kind of see how they have thought through their strategic plans. And so if you need some inspiration, or maybe if you have time to read through or skim through some of these things and say, oh, that's a good idea, I liked that, you can certainly feel free to go ahead and use that. So now, going back to nonprofit operations. So again, we're under nonprofit operations. We just put the strategic planning process. And now if we were to go underneath that and click on the annual operations plan, again, you'll see the overview, the policy, and then we have a planning guide and a template. And when you click on those, they open up at the bottom of your screen. And here's the planning guide, some questions to think about, an example. And then again, if you go back here, here's the template that you can fill out. And so this kind of also, I think to those who are asking about the specificity, you can kind of use this as a way to guide how specific you'd like to get. And so there you go. Now, of course, you don't have to use any of these tools or templates. These are more just, if you want to use them, great, and if you don't worry about it. But the strategic plan, of course, in particular, has a lot of outside resources that you might find helpful. There's also one, particularly, as we said, we want all of the plans to be living documents, and so if you find that your strategic plan is kind of not doing as well as you'd like, there's actually a document on how to bring it back to life. There's that as well. Okay, so slide, we already did this, did that. So again, nonprofit operations, there's just some more of the documents that I showed. The other thing that I did not mention from the NRC is that you actually have access to the Nonprofit Risk Management Center right from the NRC here, over here on the side. Where did it go? Nonprofit risk. And then also, because strategic plan and annual operation plans have so much to do with boards, there's also a board source link. And both of those are free resources that are available to you because of your affiliation with the communities and schools. All right, so just to finish up here. And then I'll take questions. So again, I just pulled those guides for you. And then lastly, the resource navigation. So if you have any questions pertaining to TQS, and of course, you know the National Resource Center is resources.communityandschools.org with the password EMPOWER. And if you have any questions or have difficulty finding something, you can actually, whoops, you cannot see the email very well. Apologies about that. So resourcenavigators@biznet.org. And they will help you find whatever you need. All right, so just finally, there we go. Some general reaccreditation tips. So we want you to remember that there are guides in each folder that are used to use. I've heard that some affiliates really like printing them out and kind of checking things off as they upload documents. That is perfectly fine. You know, however you find it most useful to you. And that guide is a comprehensive document of what needs to be uploaded into each folder. So I know I've been stressing this, but I just want to reiterate, please do not wait until June 1st to upload documents if you are going through reaccreditation for 2017, in which the due date is June 2nd. As soon as you have that, April board meeting, go ahead, get the minutes, get the agenda up to box.com. I would just not want you to be spending all of next week uploading documents because this is kind of something that you could have been doing on an ongoing basis. When you're uploading, please try to use a clear naming convention. So example would be CS Honolulu FY17 AOP. That just helps us find documents a lot easier. Even though it'll be in the folder, it's just simpler for us. And of course, the latest standards for your affiliate and templates guides that can help you meet these standards can be found at the National Resource Center under the accreditation process and standards. That is also where this webinar will be housed once we finish this recording and once I email you out the slides. So I think we're going to quickly show you the webinar schedule. This, as I mentioned today, is our 4th in our webinar series. Our next webinar is on June 22nd at 3 p.m., Thursday, June 22nd at 3 p.m. You can sign up. I'll be emailing you out the link as well, and the link there does work, but you can't click on it. But financial management standards will be the topic for that day. And then we skip over July due to some summer busyness and move to August and September to wrap up with employment and volunteering hiring policies and procedures and staff hiring and personnel management. And then that will conclude this series of TQS webinars. So now I've finished all the material from the affiliate planning standards, and I'd love to kind of check on the questions, which apologies if I moved through this. Okay, so here's the question. Is an affiliate, I think 3 years from when? Is an affiliate next reaccreditation 3 years from when its last one was scheduled, or 3 years from when its last one was completed? So to answer that, we've actually stuck to a schedule of since the last one was scheduled. So if you were, for example, if you went through FY15 reaccreditation, your next date is FY18 reaccreditation. So it is 3 years from the time. So even though maybe you didn't finish FY15 reaccreditation until, I don't know, October of 2016, you're still up for it in for reaccreditation in 2018 with a due date of roughly early June 2018. So if you have any questions about when you're up for reaccreditation, if you have a state office, please feel free to reach out to them. If you do not have a state office, please feel free to reach out to your point of contact. And then, of course, you can always reach out to me, but just check in with your state first if you do have a state office. Do we have any other questions about really anything pertaining to specifically the annual operations plan, strategic planning, or if you have anything for accreditation? Everyone's so quiet today. Remember, you can always raise your hand or, of course, chat in the chat box. I don't see anything. All right, well, I think the last slide is my contact information. Maybe not. Yes. If you do have any questions, you can feel free to always contact me. That's my contact information. And then at the end of this, when we conclude this call, your browser will take you right to a survey, very, very short and sweet, and we would love to know how we're doing, how we can improve, if you found this helpful, if this was not helpful, what might make it helpful for you, for your affiliate. So please let us know how we're doing. We'd love to hear from you. And if there's nothing further, I'm going to end the call a bit early today and let you have the rest of it's beautiful here in DC. I hope it's beautiful wherever you are.